Welcome back to Business Week on Arise News. Arise News was present at the 2024 Future Investment Summit in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, bringing all the latest from the three-day event. At the event's conclusion, the Arise delegation at the summit, which included my colleagues Rotus Oderi, Bosun Omofai, Adesua Giwa Osage, and Rufai Oseni, sat down to give us a recap of all the activities that went on during the summit. Let's take a look.
Final day of the 8th edition of the Future Investment Institute's summit here in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Now, this summit is happening in the midst of global geopolitical changes, the crisis in Gaza, and of course, the rise in AI. This summit has been to promote investment in Saudi Arabia and propel their stance in the international community. But we've had many attendants, not only from Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries, but also all the way from Africa and Nigeria. So I'm going to start off with Mr. B, because you spoke to the UBA and they are trying to get into Saudi Arabia. What are the highlights of this week for you?
I think what Saudi Arabia has done is to position itself within the global context. Remember what we're doing. We're just coming from, and Roto was just coming from Washington, the Bretton Woods 80th anniversary. Then you have the BRICS summit last week. Then you have the Saudi Arabia this week. Look, every country that is any country is positioning itself for investment. So the Saudis have done very well in energy, they've done very well in tourism, and a number of areas. So what they've shown the rest of the world is that, look, they've got the money. And they've got the deep pockets, then they've got the leadership in energy, oil and gas, hydrocarbon, and they're all ramping up on renewables as well. So to that extent, I see what UBA, Hess Energy, and the rest of them, Kola Karim, you interviewed, Kola Karim of Shoreline Energy, and that we can learn in terms of providing energy, electricity to the common people in Nigeria and entire Africa. And I think that's one big story for me. So let me just speak about UBA. You talk about the plan by African banks to continue their global expansion, and UBA says they want to put a foothold here in Saudi Arabia, in particular in Riyadh, after they've done about 2 years or so, or 3 years in Dubai. I think that's the one big one. I think we'll just take that interview, an excerpt from when you were Akinyemi, who is the group Deputy Managing Director at UBA.
UBA plans to be in the Gulf and be in Saudi over the next 1 year, so watch out for us. And being here would enable us to be able to lift Africans into the global space, into the Arabian space, put it very succinctly. And you know, the expertise, the achievements that Saudi has made in terms of energy sufficiency, in terms of transition as well, in terms of food security as well. I listened to the Minister of Energy yesterday and a fantastic submission about what Saudi Arabia is doing. We need that. We need to transit to sustainable energy practices in Nigeria, and we can learn a lot from Saudi Arabia.
Now, I really appreciated that you spoke about energy and electricity access, and also African companies trying to go into the international stage. But beyond just these African countries that already have a foothold like UBA, we also have the newcomers, the startups, the techies. And I believe, Rotus, you spoke to some of these new talents coming out of the continent.
Yeah, indeed. We spoke to a lot of them as far as technology is concerned, but it was not just, it was beyond the African continent, actually. My highlights was Panoptic AI, which is a company that is using software through smartphones and pads to do 30-second facial screenings in order to give you your health vitals. We had a panel here to just talk about fintech, but I am biased towards health because I think that there's a lot to be done in terms of health tech and the money that can go into it. The bulk of the money goes into fintech, but health tech is an area where there's a lot of opportunity. So I spoke with Kyle Wong. He of course gave a demonstration for us, but here's what he said about the potential for what AI can do as far as the healthcare industry is concerned.
We're revolutionizing healthcare by making vital signs monitoring accurate, accessible, and AI-powered all through your smartphone. The simple idea is that we're transforming the existing smartphone, tablet, or computer into a medical-grade vital signs monitor. So just through a 30-second assessment of your face, we're able to extract your key vital signs, like your heart rate, your breathing rate, oxygen saturation, even blood pressure, at a clinically validated accuracy.
Now, the thing about this with health tech, with fintech, with the future, is that we're still coming from a place where Africa has energy poverty, we're energy poor. And without access to electricity, we can't move forward in the continent. And speaking on that, particularly when the global north is moving towards energy transition, and their investments here, even in Saudi Arabia, are going towards clean energy, the African continent and leaders in the oil and gas space in Africa have been saying that we need our fossil fuels to power our economy and power our people. And one of those conversations was a conversation I had with Mr. Kolo Karim of Shoreline Energy, and this is what he had to say about that.
The true position is you're not comparing apples with apples. And this is what I said on my panel. It might sound controversial, but the true realities of where we as Africans is, if you think about the reality, Africa is only accounting for 3% of global emissions.
Yeah.
But yet, the global north is trying to hold us to the same standards in global south. Now, that can't be right. Why? If you look at majority of the OECD countries, they've done their first industrial revolution, second industrial revolution, third, and they're now going on their fourth industrial revolution. These are sustained first world economies. Africa with energy poverty, we only have contributed less than 3% of global emissions. It just cannot be right. And so the reality is, yes, there's a lot of great announcements from the global north. A lot of this announcements is driven towards renewables, solar, electric vehicles, all great. But what happens to the continent of Africa that's rich in transition fuel called gas?
Yes.
Africa has over 600 TCF of gas. That should be our eureka moment. The focus should be on and around that in creating and energizing our first and hopefully our second industrial revolution that will help create the sustaining jobs in the environment to helping develop Africa.
Now, I think more than any of us here, the plenary man, the plenary man during this whole Institute's event has been Rufai. Now, you attended some of the most interesting sessions here. What stood out to you?
I mean, many sessions stood out. Is it the first one with Elon Musk, the conversations about AI? Elon was supposed to be here live, but he couldn't make it. So he joined via teleconferencing, and he spoke about AI, and he spoke about the immense investment they were doing in the AI sector. In fact, there was another plenary with Masayoshi Son, the leader of SoftBank. He also spoke about AI. In fact, he said that the very super intelligent AI that's going to be 10 times, more than the intelligence of humans will be launched by 2035. He also talked about ethical issues around it. And in fact, he said SoftBank is going to be investing heavily in that AI. In fact, he said his words were, "I'm saving my money, for it." I also had a very exciting plenary with Eric Schmidt of Google, the chairman of Google. Eric is sort of like the cool head in the room, because if you read the story of Google, he was pretty much the one that balanced Google out when, you had two forces like Larry Page and Sergey Brin, coming at each other, but he was the cool head in the room, and he helped Google become what it is today. And Eric Schmidt has got something called the Schmidt Sciences now, and they've been doing a lot of work as regards modern warfare. What warfare is going to be, smart technology, AI around drones and all of that. He wouldn't like to give too much away anyway, but what it pretty much says is that they've been doing some advisory work as regards to Ukrainian war going on, and all of that. And then we also had sessions, with the likes of Ray Dalio that I also got the chance to meet yesterday, where they were talking about the markets, the fact that things are cooling off, the projections as regards to the American elections and all of that, and how it's going to be. There were also sessions, centered around, the Saudi investment, group and what they have been doing. In fact, they talked about the fact that they've got close to 1 trillion of assets under investment now as it is, and that started with about 150 billion, and they've been able to scale. And there was also another, plenary session where they talked about NEOM. So for our African audience, Saudi has this great project which they launched at this same Future Investment Initiative about 7 years ago. It's going to be all-inclusive city, over 26,000 square kilometers of land, where you have different hubs for logistics, for hotel, for real estate, and all of that. And they were talking about the fact that about 40 billion riyal have been put into it by investors and all of that. So, I went to many more plenary sessions, but part of the great plenary sessions I did get a chance to see. I talked about Elon Musk and I talked about Masayoshi Son. At first, let's just have a snippet of the Elon Musk session.
Well, my instinct with respect to AI safety is that you have to create a maximally truth-seeking AI, which may sound obvious, but that's what I'm seeing being produced is not maximally truth-seeking. It tends to be trained to be politically correct, and for a lot of the AIs that are being trained in the San Francisco Bay Area, they have taken on the philosophy of the people around them, which kind of makes sense. So you have sort of a woke, nihilistic, in my opinion, philosophy that is being built into these AIs, and they're being taught to say crazy things in some cases that are very troubling. But when Google Gemini came out, people asked whether it is which is worse, misgendering Caitlyn Jenner or global thermonuclear war? And it said misgendering Caitlyn Jenner, which is obviously a problem because we'd all die in global thermonuclear war. And so if you have an AI that's programmed for things like that, it could conclude that the best way to ensure that nobody is misgendered is to annihilate all humans, thus making the probability of a future misgendering zero. That's highly problematic. So you really want to have a maximally truth-seeking AI, and I can't emphasize that enough. That's incredibly important. And obviously build an AI that loves humanity, and I think these. So I'm a little concerned. That's why I created XAI, which is to have an AI that is maximally truth-seeking, that aspirationally does love humanity, and will seek the best interests of humanity going forward.
Real quick, we've talked a lot of men and what they've been doing. I have to highlight a woman in the tech space who is doing incredible work. She's only 28 years old, Eloa Guiton. She's from Toulouse in France. She's the founder and the co-founder and CEO of Beyond Aero. They are building an electric hydro aircraft. It's supposed to seat about 8 people and be able to fly about 1,500 kilometers. Trained at Berkeley, also went to university in Toulouse, wanted to be an astronaut at the age of 2, had a fantastic conversation with her about, the future net zero and being able to fly planes that won't contribute to CO2 emissions. So I do have to highlight, her and the fantastic work that she's doing. We got the chance to talk to her as well.
We say hydrogen electric because it's electric engines. So we have 2 electric engines, but they are not powered from lithium batteries. They are powered from fuel cells, like you said. So it's gas hydrogen stored in tanks that goes through a fuel cell. The fuel cell is taking oxygen from the air, hydrogen, and creating the molecule of water, H2O. And through that process, it generates a lot of heat. That's a problem, but we are dealing with that, and a lot of electricity. And so we use this electricity to power the electric engine. So it's hydrogen electric, 0 direct emission, since we only release water. I'm saying direct because the question is, can we have decarbonized hydrogen? So that's another scope 2 and 3. But at the scale of the aircraft itself, it's going to be 0 direct emission, fully electric. But we are using hydrogen because it's allowing us to go 5 times further away than lithium batteries. So the goal is to combine the 0 direct emission with a use case where we can have more range. So the market is going to be, in Europe, for example, we can reach 1,500 kilometers. So that's 800 nautical miles. So the idea is to touch all of the European capitals.
Focusing on women, one thing that we're seeing coming out of the Saudi Investment Fund is also a renewed focus on women entrepreneurs. And I was lucky enough to speak to one of those women. And I think it's very important as Saudi goes towards their Vision 2030 that we see a change, not just in their economics or their policy, but also particularly their policy towards women. You know, yesterday we were speaking earlier about how women in Saudi Arabia can now drive, and that's a recent development. But we've been able to see the Saudi Coffee Company, run by women, supporting women farmers, and see women entrepreneurs on stage here who are from Saudi Arabia, who are able to show what the investment fund, what the PIF has done to propel their businesses. And I think we'll take a look at one of those women now.
National Development Program. It's an amazing program for any entrepreneur in Saudi or outside of Saudi. It helps people who want to start in any, let's say, new venture, starting a new business, especially in the tech sector, to be honest, from the idea stage until the IPO stage. It's supported by the Ministry of Communication in Saudi Arabia. I was actually one of the most beneficiaries from that program, from the idea stage until inshallah, going to the Series A now. It helps you by developing the MVP. It helps you by providing funds. It helps you even connecting with any let's say ministers or big companies. So many. To be honest, I always say that to many entrepreneurs. It's an opportunity, take it. This program, it's really an amazing, people from outside of Saudi, there is a program called Relocate. They will be covered, he will be covered actually by an office, by salaries, but all of that, 2 years. So it's an amazing product, really have a short time of use it. So for me, it's a great opportunity.
Very importantly, what we're seeing here is that Saudi Arabia is trying to diversify their economy. Now, I think that's something that Nigeria should pay attention to. If Saudi is going into investments in sports and entertainment and other avenues, that perhaps we should take a leaf from their book and start diversifying our economy more seriously than we are right now. Now, I was able to speak with the former NBA champion, Rick Fox, but both of you were also able to speak with people who are investing in sports.
Traditional sports, and I'm sure Rutus didn't miss that as well. That $10 million deal to support the South African Warriors FC doing traditional wrestling, boxing in northern Nigeria. Very interesting interview about how they're able to sit down in Kano, Kaduna, and Katsina State and filming traditional sports and exporting that outside the country and etc.
Well, that was my colleagues Rotus, Boso, Adeso, and Rufai reporting from the FII 8 Summit in Saudi during the week. Now, if you want to watch more of that, you can go to the Arise YouTube channel online to watch that video. Well, that's all we have time for on Business Week now. I'm Rolake Akikwe-Filani. Let's continue the conversation on X. Do you have a lovely rest of the weekend? See you soon.